For our lesson today, we are going to be creating a game on the microbit. Remember, this class is about creating physical computing devices that we use every day. And I'm sure many of you guys play little video games. So this is going to be a very simple game that's called Catch the Dot. So the dot is going to move across the screen on the microbit, and if you press A when it is in the middle, you catch it and you get a point. In 10 rounds, if you catch the dot at least 6 times, you win. So let's go to your MakeCode. So again, when you open up MakeCode, it's going to open up the last thing that you worked on. So what I would do is just click back up here on the top and hit New Project. And we're going to call it Catch the Dot Game, or if you want to call it just Game. You need to make sure that you are signed in. I don't do that because sometimes it messes up links, so I'm just going to leave it there. The focus of this lesson too is that we are going to start the game. We're going to realize that there are bugs in the game, so we are going to fix the bugs, which is debugging, or just try to find ways to make the game better, keep improving the game. Even when we finish this lesson, you're still going to have the opportunity to see what can we do to still make the game even better. So iterations are making small changes to improve the code. All right, I have lots of tabs open here, so I need to get the right one. Here we go. All right, so the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to create 2 variables. So go to Variables. We are going to make a variable that's called score. And then we are also going to make another variable that is called dot. And that is basically, and if you want to put position, it's going to be the position of the dot. So we don't use the start event handler very often, but this would be an example of where we want to use the start. So at the start, we are going to set our dot position to 0. And then we are also going to set our score to 0. Okay, so if you aren't going to actually see anything unless I told it to, well, you will see the dot, I guess, but it's not even showing the dot right now. So, all right, because we are going to do that next. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to get this little dot to move. So we told the dot where to go, but we can't actually see the dot. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to clear the screen because after we show the dot, we want it to go away. So that's going to help the dot go away. The next thing we're going to do is in LED, we are going to plot the dot. So for the dot, we are going to plot the dot. If I leave it here 0, 0, it's right here. I want it to be down here. So that is, if you look, the coordinates are 0, 2. So, but the position of the dot that we continually want to change is we want to change that x value. So we're going to take our variable called dot position and put it there, but we're going to leave our y 0. Okay, so now hopefully if I hit play, oh, maybe I did that wrong. Okay, let's put the dot position there. All right, well, it should not be right there. Oh, I know, because we haven't changed our dot position. Sorry, my bad. Okay, so we set our dot position to be, oh, I know what I'm going to do. Here we go. Put 2. Thank you. All right, now we play. And that's still in the wrong spot. It's over here. So we're going to move the dot position here, and we're going to put 2 here. Okay, so there we go. I just made lots of little changes. I was trying to get the dot right here. So I kept kind of trial and error, and that would be an example of iterations. So I was doing all that on purpose, trying to get it to this spot. So the dot position, again, the coordinates are 0, 2. So, but then we are going to keep changing that dot position. We're going to give a little pause because otherwise it's going to go really fast. So this is how you could make the game go faster or slower. So we're going to start it at 200 milliseconds. So that's 0.2 seconds. So we're going to give it a pause. And then what we're going to do in variables, we are going to change the dot position, which we haven't used this yet. We're going to change the dot position by 1. We could use the math formula and do, at +1, but this changes it by 1. All right, so now hopefully as we look at it, the dot is now moving across the screen. When the dot gets to the end of the screen, we want it to go back to the beginning. So if the dot position gets to 4, okay, because the coordinates of this is 4, we want to set it back to 0. You hear how I say that? If the dot position is greater than 4, we need to set it back to 0. So in logic, whenever you hear if, that's what we do. And then in this thing, we need the dot position is greater than 4. So that's in logic. And we can pick either one of these, it's fine. I'll make this bigger. Please make sure that you're changing it to greater than, and then what needs to go here is the dot position. So when the dot position gets greater than 4, we are going to tell it to set the dot position back to 0. So I can duplicate this one or go back to variables to get it. Okay, so let's see what that does. So now you can see it's going across the screen. When it gets to the end, it goes back to the beginning. Okay, so far our game looks pretty good. The next thing we have to do is when the dot gets to this spot right here in the middle and we press A, then that's what the goal of the game is. And if we do that at least 6 times out of 10, then we win the game. All right, so we need to get to our button A. So input on button A. So when I press button A, we are going to, sorry, I lost my train of thought here a minute. So if button A, if the dot position, okay, so if the dot position that we get, the dot position of this here is 2. So if the dot position equals 2 when I hit A, okay, so you hear me make a comparison, so that's this. So if the dot position equals 2 when I press A, okay, then that's when I win. So I'm going to show a smile face. Okay, if the dot position when I press A doesn't equal 2, then I got it wrong, and we're going to show a frowny face. Okay, so let's check that, see if that works. So you have to push it. Okay, well the wrong worked. Okay, there. All right, now it showed the smile face, but then it kept moving the dot. So it keeps moving so we're going to have to make some changes. So basically, we want to control when this dot keeps moving, because this is going to cause us other problems too. So it's kind of like our power button. We are going to make another variable that's called like move the dot, or we'll just call it move it. There we go. Okay. And we're going to use a button B. And we're going to say when we press button B, then we want the move it to be on, which is 1. Okay, so then all of this here, which is moving the dot, we only want this to happen if we've turned on the move it. Okay, so if, you hear that? If. So that's how I said it's kind of like the power button, all that stuff. We said if the power's on. So we're saying if the move it is on. And that's just going to give us some time. Okay, so if the move it is on, the dot moves. So we control the dot moving by pressing B. So B is like we're ready to start the game. Okay, so if I press C, the dot is no longer moving, but if I press B, now the dot is moving. So then I try to press A, okay, but it still flashes for a little bit. See, so this is where we just keep making little changes to try to make our game better. So we need to turn the move it to be off when I press A, okay? So we're going to go to my variables, and we're going to set move it. So when I press A, we're going to set the move it to off. Okay, so now that might cause a little bit of problems, so we might actually have to move it somewhere else, but we'll just test it out. So when we test it out, so I press B, okay, and now it gave me a frowny face. So let me press B again, it keeps moving the dot. Okay, smile face. So it seems to be working. the smile and the frown works, but then it stays there longer. And then when we're ready to start again, we can press B again and start moving the dot. All right, the next thing that we need to do is we need to start keeping our score. So when we get a smiley face, which means we got it, I'm going to just stop this so that stops. When we get a smiley face, that was what we wanted to do. So we need to go to our variable and we're going to change, okay, and we're going to change our score by 1. So that gives us a point. Oops, sorry, that should be score. Change score by 1. So it's keeping score, but we don't actually see the score unless we tell it to show us the score. So we're going to go to a score as a number. So we're going to go show number, and the number we want to show is the score. Now, if we get it wrong, we might want to show our score as well. We could also, again, because we only can play 10 rounds, so if we have to say when it gets to 10 rounds, we need to stop the game. So what do we need to make for rounds? Another variable. So go to variable. We're going to make a variable called round. Okay, that's the round of the game. We're playing 10 rounds. Okay, so at the beginning, at the start, we need to set it to round 0. Okay, so every time we press A, we need to move our round up. So that's in variables, and we're going to change our round by 1. Regardless of whether we got it right or wrong, we're changing our round number by 1 every time we press A. All right, let's test what we have so far. And you should be doing this on yours too, and hopefully you're pausing the movie as needed so that this doesn't go too fast. Okay, so I'm going to hit play. It's not doing anything. One of the challenges is that when you start the game, a lot of times when you start a little game, there's a little animation. So you could add a little animation just in the start. And then you could also add some music and things like that to make it a little more fun. All right, so I press B, which means I'm ready to move the dot. Okay, when it gets to the middle, I press A. Okay, apparently I didn't get there, and my score is 0. Okay, so I start the dot again. Okay, so it's still saying that I didn't get it, so I want to get a smiley face because otherwise we have a problem. So it seems like I'm hitting it at the right time. Oh, there I got a smiley face. Okay. All right, and I got 1 point. So we need to add an ending to this game. So if our round number gets to 10, or however many rounds you want to give yourself to play the game. So if, you hear me say that, if, and it needs to go in the forever because it's happening like forever. It needs to keep checking if the round gets to 0. Okay, so I'm going to grab another if. Okay, and I'm going to put it outside the move it block because it has nothing to do with the dot moving. We want this to do this regardless of the dot moving. So if, and we need to also say if we win or lose the game when we get to round 10. So there's 2 conditions. It's when we get to round 10 and if we have 6 or more points. So there's 2 things. So if you remember, okay, in logic we did that. When there's 2 things we use an and because there's 2 conditions. The one condition is if the number of rounds equals 10. Okay. The other condition is if our score, I go to variable score, is greater than or equal to 6. So we have to get more than half. So if those 2 things are true, then we overall win the game. So if you want to do a string that says, you win, oops, win, okay? All right, and then I guess I would say, or else you lose. Now, you might see that we have a bug with this. So you can see it's already trying to say, oops, which I forgot to put you lose. Okay, so it's trying to say you lose because it's like, if this is true, it does this. Any other thing says you lose. So I actually need to add on to this. Okay, that would be considered a bug. It's something you didn't think would happen. And we actually need to duplicate this whole thing because it's not like we want it to say you lose all the time. We want it to say you lose when we get to round 10 and if our score is less than 6. So change that to less than. So now it will only say you lose when these two conditions are true. All right, so let's test our game again. So I press B, that moves the dot. We try to press A when it gets to the middle. My score is 0. Okay, there I got it. Okay. So by changing that pause speed is what makes you speed up the game. I just want to get to the you win or you lose to make sure that works. I'm getting a pro at this. I bet I should do another lose. Oh, I did a win. Sorry. Okay. So it finally got to that and it says you win because it reached, I clicked A 10 times. It does say, okay, so I had a score of 9 and then I lost it once. So it's a total of 10. So I think this all looks good. So this is our catch the dot game that also keeps score. The only thing you can see that it keeps saying you win. So again, like I said, you're never done. You could think of, okay, so it's going to keep saying you win. So after we win, maybe we want to play the game again. So basically we need to duplicate all of these things, which I'm going to do this way. I'm going to duplicate this whole thing and then take all this stuff out and use it. Because basically we want to set it back to the start again. So I'm going to put that all there. So that sets the dot position back to 0, the score to 0, the round to 0, and you would actually need to put that in both spots because if you win or lose, it resets the game. All right, so that is our game. Like I said, there are still things that you could change to it. So you could try to add a fun animation with some music when the game starts. Another thing you could try is you could try to, instead of we just had the dot go across the screen, you could make the dot keep going in any random spot. You'd have to make another variable called x dot and y dot. And then in math, there's a random. Okay, and so you could tell it to pick a random number 0 through 4 and put that in the, when you say to plot the XY, you'd have to put the random in there. So play around with it, and you know that makes the dot move anywhere. There's another game I've had kids try where a dot is dropping and then you have to like shoot a little fireball at it. I did not create the videos for that, but I will put the videos on here. So if this seemed really cool to you, you could start that now, or you could do it at home. Instead of playing a video game, you could make one. All right, so don't forget, you need to put your make code link, and then if you could also put a screen clipping in here as well.